Welcome to episode number 138 of the Marine Layer podcast. We welcome on baseball writer Joe Sheehan to talk about MLB's offensive environment, what he's seen in the Mariners, and what potential all-stars could be on their roster. We have our two Mariners storylines. We'll talk about Mitch Garver's June success and the bullpen carrying performance of Andres Munoz here in 2024.
Here's your guys' reminder. Stay on top of everything we're doing. If you want to stay on the podcast, download the episodes on the audio side. Leave that 5-star review. You can rate and review too. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave us a comment, and follow us on social media. We're posting every day, multiple times a day, on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod.
Let's get it rolling.
The pitch from Acevedo. A drive deep to right field. Down the line. The Mariners win this game 2-1. The dream lives. They're going to the playoffs. 1-1 from Jansen. There you go. Left field. We got a tie ball game. Julio. Oh, baby, what a moment. Tie ball game at 7-7.
And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network. Recording here on Monday evening, June 17th, here about, Lyle, 48 hours before this episode releases. The Mariners, looking at the current Rangers score tonight, could be 9 games up in the division by the time this night is out. 9 games up in the division. I'm honestly not sure what to do with myself.
We've never been in this position. Ever.
No.
Not in the time we have memories, at least. I know in 01, we were obviously alive, but I don't have memories from the 01 season. We were too young. So this is uncharted territory for the both of us. Did you think they were going to sweep the Rangers this weekend?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I know the Rangers offense has been scuffling, but as a whole, they're usually just too good. I know the Mariners have been phenomenal at home this year. But I just didn't think that they were going to have the Rangers come into town and walk out with a sweep. We were very, very happily proved wrong.
Pretty stress-free sweep. We literally, mostly stress-free. Like, Friday might have been a little stressful. Did you really have any doubt Saturday or Sunday?
Well, considering how things unfolded in the 9th on Saturday, you weren't nervous
okay,
at all?
outside of that, that's 17 of 18 innings where you felt pretty good.
All right. Fair. Sunday was, for the most part, stress-free. Although, honestly, that game stayed close for a while, too, and then the Mariners pulled away late. But the way Logan Gilbert was pitching, it didn't look like anybody was going to square anything up against him on Sunday. So, in that sense, yeah. There were times where this series felt a little bit close, especially, again, at 9th inning on Saturday. But to be 8.5 games up, and what feels like it's about to be 9 games up by the end of this Monday night, it's crazy. They are in... we said winning the series, 2 or 3, could do a lot for them. But once they won the first 2 games, I tweeted out on Saturday night that I know it's mid-June, but Sunday's game is as important of a mid-season game as you're going to find for the Mariners. They won it. They put themselves 8.5 up. They don't play the Rangers again until September. They have got a firm grip on this AL West. And I'm not even going to go into the negative territory. Let's just say they have a firm grip on the AL West. And this has set them up as not only their division to lose, but to do some damage in the American League period. Like, we've talked about trades plenty. But there is no reason now to not get aggressive at the deadline.
No reason to, and with this important series coming up with Cleveland, the updated standings today, I didn't check exactly how many games back would they be of Cleveland for the number 2. So right now they're a game and... Has Cleveland played less games? This is where... Explain to me this as they head into this series, Lyle. The Mariners have 43 wins, 31 losses, 12 games over. The Guardians right now in the 2 seed, 44-25. So 1 more win and 6 less losses. How does the math? Is that 2.5?
We're not good at math. We went to ASU. What are you asking me for?
Well,
Here, so let's put it like this. Here's what I do know. By the end of the season, every team's going to have played 162 games. So it'll balance itself out eventually. If you want to look at winning percentages, the Mariners are at 581, the Guardians are at 638, and the Yankees are at 676. So the Mariners still have some ways to go to make up for some ground against Cleveland. But if you want to talk about series importance all of a sudden again here in mid-June, not only could they set themselves up in the tiebreaker over Cleveland for a potential 2 seed if they can take care of business this week, but they could make up some ground too. And that number 2 seed has never been more valuable than it is now because no wild card round if you get a 2 seed. You get a first round bye.
No Mickey Mouse 3-game series. Like legitimately, just know, even at T-Mobile Park with this pitching staff, anything can happen in 3 games. Legitimately, anything can happen. I want to touch on the aspect of the team they just beat this past weekend. It was an absolute damn nightmare facing the Texas Rangers last year. I dreaded every single game the Mariners played against the Rangers because I'm going to be honest, I expected them, especially after the first 2 series they played against the Rangers last year, to lose every single game they played against the Rangers because they just were not good enough. Everything's changed. And yet most of Texas's roster is either hurt or largely unchanged. They're just not playing as well. I remember you and I sitting here on this podcast about exactly a year ago and talking about how in the hell are the Rangers doing this? Why are they doing this and the Mariners are not? Well, it seems like that has finally come full circle, as we explained in that episode. Seems like a lot of guys are having outlier career highs all at the same time. And what do you know? A lot of those guys this year have come back down to earth, and the Rangers, I think, since May started, have scored less runs than the Mariners have. If you just want perspective on a Marcus Semien and Corey Seager-led offense being worse than what the Mariners currently have.
I think the Mariners WRC plus in that time is better than the Rangers too. And if you, is it actually better? It might be better for the year. I know it's better since May 1st.
It might have passed them this weekend.
Right. So we knew last year, right, that there were some guys doing some outlier things. I don't think either of us thought Ezekiel Duran was going to keep up what he was doing long term. I don't even think we thought Leody Taveras was going to keep that up long term, despite once upon a time being a pretty good prospect. I don't think we thought Josh Smith was going to keep that up long term. But now you look at 2024, even some of the bats they expect to be great have not been great. Adolis Garcia since May has been a nightmare. He had a great April. Since May, he's been a nightmare. Corey Seager and Marcus Semien have not quite been themselves. They haven't been bad, but they haven't quite been themselves. Josh Young's hurt. Langford's still a rookie. Jonah Heim's injured. And that's a Rangers team that, again, that's their whole collective offense as a unit last year that set the world on fire, especially in the first half. Now everybody has regressed. And do I think there's some middle ground to this? Yes. Marcus Semien and Corey Seager are elite baseball players when they're at their best. I don't think this is going to keep up for them long term. But do I think the Rangers are going to get back to being the offense they were last year? No. There are guys in that lineup doing unsustainable things that we're not going to carry over. Again, guys like Duran, Taveras, Smith, that was not going to sustain long term. At least it didn't seem like it, and we were right.
Here's one last thing on this. Marcus Semien was very nice and gracious to us when we asked him to do a social media clip this weekend. We published it today here on Monday. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's everywhere on our Twitter account, on our Instagram account, on our TikTok account, on our YouTube account. You can find it there. Did he predict the Rangers' own downfall this weekend based on tough pitchers to face?
Well, so we'll give people a spoiler. We still recommend you go check out the clip because it is cool. And Marcus Semien, again, for somebody that's on an in-division rival, really, really good dude. And he's
Could
always
not have
had
been
that.
nicer. Could not have been nicer.
Yeah, he's known for having a very good reputation around the game. And just the 60 seconds we talked to him, we saw it up close. Anyway, we asked him the 3 toughest Mariners pitchers he's faced in his career. He said Iwakuma, so he had a little bit of a throwback from the early time in his career. But then he said Logan Gilbert and George Kirby. Well, Logan Gilbert and George Kirby carved the Rangers up this weekend, so maybe he did predict it.
Especially Logan. He put Logan up. Logan was the first guy out of his mouth. And Logan goes out and has his best start of the season with all of his secondaries working his fastball. Simeon struggled against Logan Gilbert on Sunday. And, well, Marcus, you're almost like, God, who are those people who see the future? Like a messiah? Who sees the future?
Sure, let's go with that.
Psychic?
Yeah, psychic.
Yeah, psychic. Saw the future. He did a little bit of that. So shout out to you, Marcus, for being nice to us, but also for predicting a good Mariners pitching performance this weekend. What a performance by them, off day today, and it continues on the road upcoming. So here's a guy, as we get into our Mariners storylines, Lyle, who's been a key on the other side of the ball for the Mariners in having a good June. Mitch Garver's flying under the radar right now, the way his June is playing out. The way he is playing right now, he is going to give the Mariners front office a real headache when it comes to what they're going to do if Tyler Locklear also continues to hit. Because I'll tell you what, Mitch Garver is no longer at the status of where you think, okay, he's going to be the backup catcher. That should be his role because he hasn't hit enough offensively. No, Mitch Garver right now with Ty France out is the Mariners' singular best hitter.
How does an 893 OPS in the month of June sound? How does a 159 WRC plus in the month of June sound? How does a 22% walk rate in the month of June sound? He's turning it around, and we've seen him do it month by month, only to explode in June. And I don't know how much of this has to do with new team, new setting, new ballpark, and getting adjusted, but I hope that's what it is, because if that's the case, he now seems adjusted. Mitch Garver had a 66 WRC plus in April. He had an 88 WRC plus in May. Now here we sit, 159. He seems like he's arrived.
It's almost like I don't want to say it's an outlier month because he's a good hitter, but it's almost an outlier in terms of what the results are. He legitimately has never walked as much in a month as he has this month. He's still got some time left in this month for that number to normalize and potentially go down. I think his other career high walking in a month is I think it's 21.9. It's not 22. So the current 22% mark, yeah, maybe it's a little high and maybe that'll come down. But I'm just guesstimating here in terms of his offensive approach. We've highlighted a few weeks ago now when we did our third of the way through the season player evaluations, the two guys we spent the most time on, Mitch Garver and Jorge Polanco. And what we ultimately got to with Mitch Garver is, especially facing right-handers, breaking balls have killed him this year. Is he to the point now in June where he has decided that he's just not going to swing at breaking balls as much because he knows he's not having success against them, and that therefore leads to this higher walk rate? I feel like that could be a possibility here in how his offensive performance has evolved. And then if you add on top of that, so it's like, okay, well, I'm not swinging at breaking balls, which means I'm only swinging at fastballs, I'm only swinging at sinkers, and I'm only swinging at changeups. And all those pitches he's hit pretty well this year, especially now going through June. And it's helped out. It has led to less ground balls. It's led to about the same amount of fly balls, and it's led to a lot more line drives where when he does swing, he's making a lot more damage. He's swinging and missing less. He's chasing less. His strikeout rate now in June is 20%. That's incredible for him going through the first 2 months at about 32%. That's a remarkable improvement.
Last time we talked about Mitch Garver, we said, what does he do best in his career? Hits the fastball. First couple months of the year, him and most of the Mariners offense, to be honest, wasn't capitalizing on fastballs. Well, let's look at Mitch Garver now, because his numbers against four-seam fastballs feature a 600 slugging percentage. And if you wonder if that's sustainable, his expected slug against that pitch, 601. In other words, it is very sustainable. What he is doing against fastballs now is very real, and it has done a total 180 for where his season has gone. He was not crushing fastballs like this the first couple months. Now he is, and everything has flipped for him in a very, very positive way. He started to hit fastballs. He started to produce.
What if I told you he's also a little unlucky this month? His BABIP this month is 180. Mm-hmm. See, it's a little low for that. And based on the type of hitter he is, he could have a lower BABIP because he hits a lot of fly balls. He's trying to hit a lot of fly balls. And fly balls are the worst type of batted ball event for BABIP because it's most likely, Lyle, it's either an out or a home run. An out goes against your BABIP. A home run doesn't count. So it's going to be lower. But the fact that he is 15th this month in baseball in isolated power, yet having a sub 200 ISO, leads a little unlucky. He's almost, he should be hitting better than he is ultimately. But stuff like that will normalize if he hits more line drives as well. Here's another thing I want to throw at you before you respond. So Mitch Garver caught his first baseball game. He caught George Kirby for the first time in a Mariners uniform on May 29th. Since that point, hasn't been exactly his June, but it's been a 345 on base percentage, a 455 slug, a 135 WRC plus, a manageable 25% strikeout rate, and a 20% walk rate. Is that the fix? I don't know. But he sure has been hitting well since that point. You thought it could ignite his bat, and it has.
Listen, as long as he stays healthy and they're not running him into the ground behind the plate back there, if getting him on his feet more and having him move around more and also having him be more occupied during games rather than just focusing on his 4 at-bats a night is actually going to help, then great. Stick with it. Because what they're doing right now seems to be working. They have Mitch Garver almost strictly catching George Kirby, right? Maybe every now and then they'll throw him back there a little bit more often, but it seems like that is their plan right now. They have Garver connected with Kirby. I'm not saying it's a total personal catcher thing, but that's the route they've chosen to go for now. And you just outlined it. It's helped them. So if they think they can manage this, and this can still keep Garver healthy, and he's going to be in the lineup, and ultimately still gives his bat all the opportunities that he needs, great. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Because this Mitch Garver, since he started catching, is the Mitch Garver they signed up for when they signed him to the contract this winter. And this is so important. We talked about who is the most valuable bat behind Julio Rodriguez preseason. You said Polo. I said Garver. Jason Churchill also said Garver. We're now seeing it. That's what's crazy about what the Mariners did through the first 2 months. They were in first place for the majority of that time with so many of the expected anchors in their lineup not doing what they were supposed to be doing. Now Garver's really gotten going. And you know what? When Jorge Polanco comes back, which is going to be in the next couple days, let's hope he's finally ready to unlock all the potential he has in his bat too.
I don't know if you've realized this as well. So there's 24 games before the All-Star break. If Mitch Garver played every single one of those games, he would have now at that point only played 2 less games than he did all of last year. He's been on a, knock on wood, find some wood. He's been on a pretty good run of health here. And if he makes it to the All-Star game, say he only plays in 20 of those games, well, then he would be 6 games away from the amount of games he played last year. Again, one of the best offensive years of his career last year in Texas. He played half the season. He just, if he gets here through the first half, this will be one of the most healthy stretches of baseball he's played. And then you feel like, I guess, you're playing with house money in the second half because he's legitimately never done it. Never done that. 103 games is the most he's played in his career. And so far, it looks like he's going to break that. That's what it looks like. And if he can combine games played and offensive performance, yeah, that $12 million looks like a bargain.
Right.
Not a waste.
Here's our reminder to everybody again, and most of you know this, our listeners are smart people, but this is exactly why you do not use batting average to judge a player. When you outlined his BABIP and how he could actually be better this month, he's hitting 205 for the month, batting average-wise, but has an 893 OPS and a 159 WRC+. This is why you don't use batting average to judge a player.
Yeah, notice I didn't use the batting average since he started catching. He's hitting 182 since then.
But his WRC plus is what? Really good.
135, and he's got a 345 on base percentage. Like, he's reaching base. That's what you want.
Yeah. Stop using batting average, people. Most of you know that. If you're a batting average person listening, though, stop using it. Okay. Before we get to our next storyline here, let's take a quick pause. We're going to talk to you guys about our friends at Pagach's Pub 85. Mariners are hot. I know you want to get out, watch some games with your friends, have some community outings. Head over there and do it. And if you head over during happy hour too, you get great drink specials for $3 and $4. That's from 2 to 6 p.m. on Monday through Friday. You can get there early, get some great prices on drinks, hang out with your friends, watch all the sports you want. There's more than 20 TVs in the place. There's also pool, darts, and some great food. All of that is over at Pagaccia's Pub 85 in Kirkland. Storyline number 2, another positive. I always like when we have positive storylines. It makes the podcast a lot more fun.
Mm-hmm.
Andres Munoz is unbelievable. You all know that. We know that. But we have not dedicated a true segment to Andres Munoz so far this year, and it's time we do so.
He has been putting the bullpen in a backpack, with his bad back, by the way, in running diamonds over and over and over. It's like high school conditioning all over again, Lyle. Everyone's jumping in Andres Munoz's backpack and running home plate, left field foul pole, right field foul pole, home plate, and then again, and again, and again, and again, because that's what this dude is doing. This is, with all respect to the rest of those guys, the most sure and probably the only sure 3 outs in that bullpen. The only one. Because he is that unbelievable of a baseball player. We're talking about right now, he is on pace to set a career high in ERA, or career low in ERA, at 1.55 right now. The expected numbers back that up, all below 2.5. I mean, we're talking about expected, FIP, and xFIP. His strikeout rate is back up 36%. The walk rate is good, manageable, not quite what it was in 2022. I think we'll have some 2022 comparisons in here because that is the standard Andres Munoz set in his first full season. But regardless, Lyle, I mean, this dude is, I think we're going to talk more about All-Stars on Friday's episode, and we can make more of a case then. But in terms of what he is doing on the diamond and the importance he is to this Mariners bullpen, it cannot be understated. Probably the most valuable reliever in baseball, based on what has happened around him.
Let me respond with 2 things. Number 1, like you said, with all respect to this bullpen, and not that there aren't other guys in this bullpen, like we've talked about. I know there's some guys injured right now, but even of the healthy guys, like Taylor Saucedo's been great. Trent Thornton's been great, very good at least. There have been guys that have really stepped up in this bullpen and are very dependable. But when you talk about surefire 3 outs, the guys in baseball that you can say that about are the game's elites. The guys that, when they come into the game, it doesn't matter if it's a 1-run game and you're facing the heart of the order. You're not worried. You're not sweating it. You know they're going to come in and slam the door. That is Andres Munoz. He is one of the game's elite relievers, elite closers, however you want to draw it up. And number 2, I don't think WAR does him justice here, because he's got an 0.9 F-WAR. That's in the top 15 among relievers in baseball. But I don't think that does him justice to what he's meant to the ball club so far. With a bad back, like you just mentioned, he has been one of the game's best relievers. If he was not on this team right now, I don't want to think about what their win total would be. I'll tell you this. If Munoz was not on the team and all the injuries that still occurred, they're not 12 games over. There's no way they're 12 games over. They've been great in all these 1-run wins. So much of that has to do with Andres Munoz. So we are pro WAR on this podcast, of course, but for what Munoz does, I don't think him ranking in the 10 to 15 range in F4 among relievers justifies or highlights just how important he's been.
Yeah. And yet again, for another year, I think we'd envisioned this, and we'd commented on it when the season's gone along, how he's evolved sort of yet again. 2022 breaks in, fastball, slider, that's it. Last year, works the sinker, and the sinker's fine. It's another pitch. It's not a great pitch, but he works it in last year. This year, Lyle, legitimately, you can make a case a sinker is better than a slider is now. That slider, that devastating pitch, which you could argue is one of the best pitches in baseball in 2022, now might be the second best pitch in his own arsenal. Here's why I think Andres Munoz unlocks another level with this pitch. This pitch, his sinker this year, do you realize he gets more swings and misses on that pitch than he does on a slider?
Crazy.
Yeah, more swings and misses, and he is allowed just 4 singles on that pitch this year. Okay, so if you're telling me you can cook up a pitch in a lab that has a 46% whiff rate, and the best you can do against it is pound it into the ground, 4 singles allowed, the average launch angle against that pitch is -6 degrees. Sure, it gets hit hard, quote unquote hard right into the ground to one of your infielders, that's if you don't swing and miss at it. Oh, by the way, he throws it 98 miles an hour. Good luck, right? Good luck. So the pitch is either going into righties and you're pounding it into the ground, or it's going outside to righties and you're probably swinging and missing at it. Good luck, guys. Andres Munoz has refined another one of his pitches, and it has allowed him to reach a new level.
Dude, I think it's almost physically impossible to hit a home run against that pitch. It's like you'll put it into the ground, but I don't know how a hitter could elevate that thing. You just outlined all the numbers to back it up. It is so tough to barrel up. And honestly, another reason he's taken a step, what are most relievers known for? 2 really good pitches. Usually they have a really good fastball and a wipeout breaking ball. There's some guys like Mariano Rivera who got away with 1 pitch their whole career, like Cutter. Andres Munoz is now a 3-pitch closer. You know how hard that is to prepare for? When oh, by the way, he mixes them all in a lot. He uses his slider the most, but he uses his fastball and his 2-seamer about 25% of the time each. So the fact you're mixing all 3 of those pitches in at a healthy rate and making hitters prepare for 3 deadly pitches with a fastball that's 100, 102 miles an hour, brutal. A brutal task for opposing hitters. So yet another reason he's leveled up again.
His fastball, his 4-seam fastball, not a sinker, his 4-seam fastball this year has also been better. But I think a lot of what that pitch, all the success that pitch has now, is because hitters are expecting a sinker and don't know what to expect. So the run value of the 4-seam fastball is better than the sinker is. But I think the sinker is actually doing more work to benefit Andres Munoz than just his 4-seam fastball. Because that 4-seam fastball, if you remember in 22, had a negative run value because it got hit pretty hard. It was a hard fastball, but it was a hard and mostly straight fastball that guys would foul off and then eventually hit, and that would be most of the damage Andres allowed that year. Well, this year, like, it's either barreling in under your barrel or it's going over your barrel, and you got to make a decision which one you're swinging at, and you have very, very little time to swing at it. So it is benefited all of his other pitches to make it that much more valuable, and it's more comfortable to him if he doesn't have the feel of one of his pitches. If he can't command his slider, okay, he's only throwing hard stuff. If the sinker's spraying out of the strike zone, well, then I'll just do what I did in 22 and throw 60% sliders. It's really not that big a deal. I'd say there's only one thing here on Andres Munoz on the negative side. I'm yearning for the command he had in 2022. His 2022 command was immaculate. I've mentioned this before, I think, when we did our bullpen preview. Go on to Baseball Savant, go to the heat maps and click the year 2022, and you get a bright red circle of location on both his fastball and his slider. His fastball was perfectly located on the top rail of the strike zone. That red circle, the heat map, which is where he threw most of his pitches, was right in the center of the upper rail of the strike zone, perfectly. And his slider, if you're thinking about it to a right-handed hitter, was perfectly nestled on the lower outside corner to a right-hand hitter. He has yet to regain that. He doesn't have that this year. He's still spraying his pitches around a little bit, and he had a big problem with that last year, which is why he got hit a little harder. So that's probably the one thing. It could just be that his pitches move too much. That could be it. That's a thing.
Call this a hot take. I like 2024 Andres Munoz better than 2022 Andres Munoz. I'd like to see him get his... I do.
That's kind of a hot take.
So I'd love to see him get his command back to 2022 form, sure. He didn't have 3 pitches back in 2022, number one. And number two, what you just outlined with the run value. He had a 20 run value on his slider that year and a -5 run value on his fastball. What hitters were doing was they essentially gave up on trying to hit his slider, so they would just gear up for his fastball and try to time it up. Well, they can't do that anymore. His fastball doesn't get hit like that anymore because not only does he have a 3rd pitch, but he mixes everything in a lot more now. So it's way harder for hitters to try to time up what he's doing. If you look at the efficiency of each of his pitches, it is much more balanced than what it was in 22, where he had one elite pitch and one pitch that was getting hit pretty hard. Now that's not happening. Now he has 3 pitches that he can use basically at any point, that are not getting destroyed.
This is a good subject to please leave a comment down in the description. Send us an email, send us a DM. Which version of Andres Munoz is better? Do you think it was better, or do that you trust more, 2022 or 2024? I think this is actually a very interesting discussion on this. So Andres Munoz, I'd say in 2024, is more protective of damage. I'll say that. Because he has the sinker, he is less prone to giving up a home run, which is the ultimate damage for relievers. In 2022, when he threw a straight four-seam fastball, a little bit more prone to that. So I'd say that's the take I'll have on that. Here's my last thing on Andres Munoz. His performance against lefties this year is interesting, to say the least, because when I go back to 2022, for example, he was dominant against left-handers, and he was actually worse against right-handers than he was against left-handers. Last year, it was about even. This year, lefties are hitting him significantly better. I mean, his FIP against lefties is 5 runs higher than it is against righties this year. It's pretty stark splits, and he has pitched about even against both. So he has been a much more mundane reliever this year against left-handed bats, which for the success he's had in his career is a little bit puzzling, and that's something he's going to need to get sorted out.
Could it be a little bit fluky? Just a first half thing?
So there's a couple things that jump out. It could be fluky because he has given up 2 home runs to lefties and none to righties. Those skew numbers immensely. And that could just be chance. That could be just one bad pitch. But he's also walked a lot more lefties as well. So the command and the damage have both not, the damage control have not been there against lefties. Sure, it could probably normalize. I wouldn't be shocked if it normalizes, but the numbers do say in the first half so far, he's been pretty bad against lefties. Uncharacteristically bad against lefties. Not throwing enough strikes, not limiting damage, and really not being that effective against left-handers. Righties, good luck. Lefties, it's not that easy.
Let's see what his numbers look like in the second half against lefties, because that'll give us a better idea of whether this is fluky or whether it's something to really monitor going forward in his career.
Yeah, so the overall breakdown against lefties, strikeouts are down, walks are up. His whip is triple of what it is against righties. His FIP is 5 runs higher, and then he's allowed the 2 homers to none. So that's ultimately the breakdown. It would take some serious work to normalize that and balance it to what right-handers do, but it's something to look out for Andres Munoz. That's probably about it, because otherwise, what I said at the beginning with the backpack, that is what this dude has been doing for this Mariners bullpen.
And the lefties thing, again, I think he faces more righties than lefties, period. And while it's something to monitor, in the end, dude's still got a 1.55 ERA. He's got a 2.26 xERA. He's got a 2.39 FIP. 2.36 FIP. I'll take that any day of the week.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I would think so too. Remember, as a throw-in for a trade, throw-in for an Austin Nola trade.
Yeah.
We'll take it. So speaking of bullpens and offense, Andres, I don't think we didn't talk about Andres with Joe Sheehan, but Joe Sheehan, who we talked to earlier today here on Monday, publishes his own newsletter at joesheehan.com. Longtime sports writer, formerly at Baseball Perspectives, really smart dude when it comes to baseball. So why I'm glad we had him on is because we made it a point at the beginning of this interview. We wanted to try and get an answer of what we have talked about multiple times on here, of why the offensive environment in baseball is down. And Joe had an idea, had some thoughts on it. He's written about this extensively in his newsletter that you can go subscribe to. He also offers free versions, I think, once a week that you can go look at on his website. But trying to dive into this issue, I thought was very interesting. He watches a lot of baseball, had some comments on the Mariners as well. So it's good overall analytical and also a little bit umpire critical interview, which we always approve of.
Always. We learned a lot. I enjoyed just sitting here and getting to listen to him dive in on some of this stuff, because there were things that I either hadn't thought about or hadn't dove in on, and I think you're the same way, for the offensive environment in baseball. So there's now a lot more the two of us have learned after listening to him talk, and I think all of our listeners are also going to pick up on some knowledge from listening to Joe talk.
So we won't keep you any longer. Let's get to our interview with Joe Sheehan. All right, we got Joe Sheehan on with us. He is the founder of the Joe Sheehan Baseball newsletter. You can find it at joesheehan.com. Joe, thanks so much for taking some time to join us. I think the subjects work out of what we're trying to talk about today, and the subject of what our podcast is about and what we want to lead this conversation off with. I feel like the Mariners play the ultimate brand of baseball in 2024's version of Major League Baseball. Really good pitching, not a lot of runs, and I think, as you like to frame it, mush balls. So when you're looking at the league right now, what is up with this offensive environment? Why does everyone play like the Mariners, it seems like?
Well, the Mariners have a 300 OBP, which is terrible, except it's only about 10 points lower than the league OBP. So they're not that far, even with what we consider normally to be a bad OBP, they're not that far from the median. And this is one of the issues now baseball has. Baseball's been an under 320 OBP environment for a long time now. And when you're not getting runners when OBP slips that low, it just becomes very hard to keep the engine of an offense moving, and you become more and more reliant, not on small ball, which is what people think happens, but on the long ball. You're trying to score as many runs as possible in as few at-bats as possible. That means hitting home runs. So the lower OBP gets, the more you become reliant on scoring quickly. The Mariners do fit that. They're kind of built for this low OBP, high homer environment, although that hasn't performed for them this year. I want to say the OBP is, the slugging is 380, 390, somewhere in there. So again, right around league average. You mentioned mush ball. The baseball, MLB's been trying to get control of the baseball right now. It's certainly more consistent, but if you look at performance on contact, with some of the numbers I like to look at, batting average on contact is as low as it's been in 30 years. Slugging on contact is as low as it's been in 10 years. So you have a ball that when you hit it, doesn't go quite as far. Todd Zola at RotoWire has talked about the average distance the ball flies about 4 feet less than it did last year. That doesn't sound like a lot, but if you think about the margins on some of these hits, the ball getting over a glove or not, a ball getting over a fence or not, 4 feet on average makes an enormous difference. So we've looked at things in the past like the drag signatures on the baseball. Dr. Meredith Wills, Bradford William Davis, Rob Arthur have all done some great work on that. Still waiting to see what they say about the ball's actual construction. But what we know from the performance is that the ball isn't flying as far, which is why we have a league that's hitting part of why we have a league that's hitting 240 with a 310 OBP and a sub 400 slug.
So what's the solution to all this? Like in 2019, home runs were flying out of the yard left and right? And people thought or figured it was because of a juiced baseball. That's obviously not the case now. Is it something like bringing back a baseball like that? Like, do you think baseball would ever go back to something like that?
I think we can focus on the baseball because that's something that MLB does control. They bought Rawlings a couple of years ago. This is something they've tried to do is get control of the baseball. Talking a little bit, remember a couple of years ago, we had the sticky stuff controversy. Pitchers were using all of these substances to get a better grip on the ball. MLB put the kibosh on that. We see the umpires, play patty cake with pitchers now at the end of every inning. But grip on the baseball is another issue that pitchers will talk to you about. The baseball is part of this. But let's not forget, we're still at a 22% strikeout rate, which is right around the all-time high. It actually leveled off a couple of years ago. The MLB's finally, we've seen that reach peak strikeout, about 22%. You get the issue of defenses being better. Last year, there was a jump in batting average on balls in play owing to the elimination of the shift. But a year later, teams have gotten better about positioning their defenders. Russell Carlton at Prospectus did a really good piece last week about outfield defense and how that's gotten so much better. Teams don't shift in the infield anymore. They're not allowed to. But they can put their outfielders wherever they want. It started with playing outfielders deeper a few years back because everybody hits for power now. And now teams are actually even better about laterally positioning their outfielders. So when you look at, I mentioned on contact, if you look at doubles and triples, outfield fly balls that normally become extra base hits, they're becoming extra base hits at a much lower rate than ever before. It's not just the home run rate. It's doubles and triples being taken out of the game. It's doubles and triples being turned into singles. So that's part of it as well. And then, a lot of things we talked about this year is how nobody's throwing fastballs anymore, right? The Red Sox were on Sunday Night Baseball, and they've been they're not carrying the coal mine. The Giants were in recent years, but they've gone extreme away from the fastball. Well, all of the offense in baseball happens on the four-seam fastball. If you break it down, it's four-seam fastballs, guys hit very well, and everything else, guys don't hit very well at all. So the more fastballs that get exchanged for breaking pitches and for off-speed pitches, we talked about the splitter coming back this year. Well, every fastball that leaves the league takes a little bit of offense with it. So, Lyle, what I would say is unfortunately, there is no one solution here. And there's actually no action. It's hard to find an actionable solution. You can't tell pitchers, don't throw your best pitches. Fastballs get hit, non-fastballs don't. I don't know how you legislate against that without saying you have to throw 50% fastballs every game. That's not going to work. So, yeah, baseball, better defense, a different pitch mix are all contributing to offense being down. I've talked about moving the mound back in the past. That's gone nowhere. They tried that in the Atlantic League. There was too much pushback. I'm writing a piece this week about the strike zone. I think an automated strike zone that calls a strict 17-inch plate would go a long way towards balancing the pitcher-hitter relationship because right now hitters have to protect 2 inches off the outside corner, it seems, if you look at the way umpires call the plate. I think forcing pitchers to throw actual strikes would make a difference. But this is going to take a while.
In terms of the difference between last year and this year, so last year they banned the shift, and we see the uptick in offense. And baseball I think they have the idea they get what they want. But like you said, they've adjusted this year. Is it just the defensive positioning that has taken away some of the offense this year, or has the pitchers made a 1-year adjustment on on pitching to this defensive strategy as well?
I think with any rule change, it's going to take a little bit of an adjustment. Remember, they didn't officially announce the shift rules, I want to say, until late in 2022 that they were going to ban the shift. And, it takes a year to figure out, okay, what are the limits? Now, even we saw last year, shortstops playing within an inch of the bag, second baseman playing within an inch of the bag. They've actually tried in the minor leagues a rule that it keeps the middle infielders farther away from the bag. So we worked on that. But it probably took a year for teams to figure out what is the optimal defensive positioning just short of breaking the rules that are in place. Remember, depth was an issue too. In addition to keeping 2 infielders on each side of second base, you were no longer allowed to position your second baseman or your shortstop in some cases on the grass. So that was actually one of the factors last year. So teams have figured out how to work around that. But mostly, though, I think when you look at batting average on balls in play, which is 288, I believe, so far this year, more like it's been prior to 2023. 2023 really does look like just a 1-year fluke. And all of these other factors I'm talking about, outfielder positioning and pitch mix, are driving that down. Historically, BABIP has been, if you go back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, BABIP was in the 270s and 280s. The difference is now strikeout rate is much higher, so you're more reliant on batted balls you need more batted balls to generate offense. And also, guys hit the ball harder than they ever have before. You don't have Larry Boa and Dave Concepcion and all these weak-hitting second basemen and shortstops and center fielders kind of slapping the ball. The average, we don't have StatCast data for 1978, Lord willing if we did. But basically, we would expect more balls to be getting through because they're just being hit harder. And it's improved defense that's keeping that from happening.
You actually answered one of my questions in your last answer that I had for you, because I had a follow-up about, would baseball ever consider something like moving the mound back, which I know and that they've talked about, or maybe lowering the mound as a way to give hitters some advantage? Because I always think about, there has to be something in terms of balancing out where the league's going. And I know part of this, right, is the fact that guys are throwing harder than ever, breaking balls are tougher to hit than ever, and there's being less fastballs thrown than ever. And you highlighted all that. So from what it sounds like you said, though, there's no chance of doing anything with the mound in the near future.
I want to address lowering the mound first. I did a piece 6-7 years ago now. So in 1968, they lowered the rule book mound from 15 inches high to 10 inches high. At the same time, we expanded by 4 teams. And what you found is that if you look at offense from 69 through 72, the effects of moving the mound down really kind of washed out. It was really an expansion effect more than it was a moving the mound down. So you also modified the strike zone in 69 as well. So a lot of changes happened at once. But when you look at it, the mound moving didn't seem to really have the effect. It was the expansion and it was the strike zone. There's also less room to move the mound now. It's listed, it's at 10 inches high. You're going to lower it to 8, 7. You're not going to get that big a bounce the way you did back in, whatever bounce you got in 69, you're not going to get it again. I want to move the mound back. We put the mound put the rubber at 60 feet 6 inches in 1893. That was, I think I was 2 years old then. And it's just, you can't look at the pictures with the stuff they had in 1893, the height of the pitchers, the extension they got then, and think that pitchers should be in the same place 125 years later. That's my biggest and best argument, is that if you were starting baseball today, you would never put the pitchers 60 feet away from the hitter. You'd back them up a little bit more. Now, again, they tried an experiment in the Atlantic League. There was a lot of resistance to it. And then basically they've abandoned the idea. But right now, the single biggest problem with offense in baseball is the pitchers are too close to the hitters. Everything else we're trying to talk about is avoiding dealing with the fact that the pitchers are too close to the hitters.
So we talked about how much better pitchers have gotten year over year over year. Is there any next step that hitters can take to get better? Like, are we going to see, hopefully in 20 years, that the hitting is finally ahead of the pitching and it swings back to the offensive side?
I think hitters have adapted by trying to hit the ball as hard as they can and hit the most productive type of hits. I mean, you see some of older fans will complain about, well, guys don't hit like Scott Fletcher anymore. And they don't, because that's not a very productive way of hitting. So the better pitchers are now, you kind of concede that, we're going to swing and miss a lot. But when we hit the ball, we want to have the most productive hits we can, which means hitting pulled fly balls. You can't design baseball. You could deaden the ball until it's a mush. But short of that, a pulled fly ball is always going to be the best thing that a hitter can do. So you really have to radically change the game to change that. And hitters just know that. That's been the adaptation, TJ. And the catch is a lot of fans don't like it. I've had this fight before, hitters don't adjust. Yes, they did. You just don't like the way they adjusted. So you kind of have to redesign baseball to make, pulled fly balls be less valuable. And that's really hard to do. Even if you said, well, let's move all the fences back. Well, you can't move all the fences back. The Green Monster's not going anywhere. Some of these ballparks, you just literally can't move the fences. So it's a challenge. But I do think hitters have adapted. Now, one of the things you could say is that with the backtracking technology we have now, and teams have, there's been this stuff for here. Guys will wear the wearables. They've got the sensors they used to put on the bats. I do think there's a hope that technology, which has largely helped pitchers to date, will help hitters to adapt. It's a hope. The thing is, pitchers act, hitters react. You're never going to be able to get away from that. So pitchers are always going to have a greater control over the pitcher-batter matchup. So could hitters catch up a little bit? Yes. But as long as pitchers are still witches, hitters are going to be at a disadvantage.
I'm curious to talk about Seattle and its lack of hitter-friendly environment for a minute here, because even with offense in baseball going down, Seattle is still arguably the toughest place to hit for any hitter in the game. And a lot of the talk is, well, the marine layer takes the baseball down, fly balls don't travel as well. Is there more? I have a follow-up after you give your first answer, but is there more to it than that, you believe, or are we right on the money here about this is why it's so tough to hit here versus other places?
Yeah, when you're talking about hitters in pitchers' parks, you're talking about visibility, you're talking about ball flight. The ball just isn't going to fly in Seattle. It's just the nature of the atmosphere. San Diego's got a similar problem. Altitude affects it. Obviously, Coors Field being the best example, but also Chase Field in Phoenix. Atlanta is one of the higher ballparks in baseball, so that makes a difference. But I've never heard complaints about the visibility at we still calling it Safeco? I forget. T-Mobile now. T-Mobile. I can't keep up with sponsorship changes. I've never heard complaints about the visibility at T-Mobile, so I don't think that's actually the problem. It's just the ball doesn't fly as well. And we get pretty good measurements of that, how well the ball flies in different parks, and altitude and proximity to sea level. And ball does fly better in humidity than it doesn't. This is kind of one of the myths. You think about heavy air, you think, the ball's not going to fly through. Because water is less dense than air, the ball actually does fly better in humidity than it does otherwise.
You mentioned the visibility thing, and you might not have a perfect answer for this, but we've now heard a couple people talk about over the last year or two that, and I never really thought about this, but the batter's eye at T-Mobile Park actually is a little bit tough for hitters to pick up, just because what we've heard some people say is it's a little bit slanted. It's not that close to the fence. It's pretty pushed back. And for a few hitters, it's actually messed with their eyesight a little bit. So again, you may not have a perfect answer to this, but is that a real gripe?
This is the first thing I'm hearing about it, Lyle. I apologize if this has been in the water supply and I just haven't picked up on it. So I would say that, it's possible, and it's certainly possible because the batter's eye is an issue. San Diego a couple of years ago had an issue. They grew some trees or something. And I want to say, Soros at The Athletic has written about this. You can mess up the batter's eye. Some of the speculation is that changes in the Rogers Center in recent years have to do with the construction they've done. They've changed the hitter's background. So it absolutely can be a factor for hitters. There's no question, especially to go back to what I just said, given what pitchers are able to do right now. Even if you change the visibility a little bit, that's going to tilt the batter-pitcher matchup. Unfortunately, though, I had not heard this about Oracle T-Mobile, but I will get into it. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think it's been nationally talked about or anything like that. We just heard a couple people talk about it in kind of minor detail, I would say. So you're not missing anything nationally or anything, but we were just kind of curious to pick your brain about that because we just heard a little bit about it. That was all.
Yeah. Can absolutely be a factor.
Mm-hmm. And what's curious about all of that is I think of parks that would be difficult to see the baseball. Fenway would be at the top of the list. I mean, you look out straightaway center, it's green and it's slanted and there's seats out there and there's fans out there. And you would think that would make it a little tougher to hit. But, you know, the Red Sox don't seem to have trouble hitting at Fenway Park. So
I will say that they look very carefully at this stuff now because, again, you know, it's not even just a performance issue. It's a safety issue. And I think about, you know, reading about games in the 50s at Yankee Stadium and guys having to hit against the background of white T-shirts and trying to pick up the ball coming out of that. They don't set that up anymore. Every ballpark is constructed with a batter's eye of some kind. But yeah, some of them are easier to hit against than others. But this is absolutely something that all 30 ballparks are supposed to have hit.
One last thing from me on the offensive environment issue. And it's so polarizing when we look at the difference between the pro game and the college game when it comes to how the game is played. I don't think, like, there were definitely some peak days in the 90s, especially of college baseball and offense just being absolutely absurd. But seeing where, like, how the college game is currently being played baseball-wise, I mean, just shattering home run records, shattering offensive records with, you know, still some pretty talented pitchers because a lot of these pitchers will come up and then dominate in the big leagues once they get into a pro system. Do you have any sense of why the two versions of the game are so different when the same players come up through college and they play a different game when they get to the pros?
Yeah, it's memory of the 1990s before they changed the bats in college. I want to say my SC Trojans played a 21-14 final. Baseball, not football. The College World Series.
ASU.
ASU,
right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I don't follow college baseball closely enough to say exactly what their problem is this year, whether it's the bats, the baseballs, the players. I wish I did. We have the newsletter has a Slack attached to it, and there are people in there who really love college baseball. That's where I get most of my information from. But obviously, this has been a very big year for offense in college baseball, whether it's, you know, a talent mix thing, which can happen. You can have a year where you have more hitting talent than pitching talent. But of course, this has been across the country, so it's probably an equipment thing. Is it a one-year fluke? Go back to Lyle mentioned 2019. You know, the baseball can bounce around. If you go from you start in 2016 and you go from 17, 18, 19 in baseball, the baseball performed wildly differently. So this could just be a fluke of the year. One of the things we know is that the NC2A controls bat performance more so than MLB does. This goes to having, you know, artificial aluminum bats or composites, whatever they're made of now. And that was what the NCAA got control of back in, God, guys, what was it? You might follow it more closely than I do. It was like the 2000s. It was after, I think, that SC game where they were like, hey, we got to change this. So the bats don't perform as well. So maybe there's been some changes in the tolerance there. I'm kind of throwing out a lot of ideas because I don't know why the NC2A game has changed so much this year. And I'd want to see a couple of years of this before deciding it's a trend. We could get to next year and the game looks like it did, 21, 22. So, let's see what happens next year.
I like that, and I feel like sample sizes are important when analyzing these kinds of things. So I'm with you on that, but I'm never one to be against home runs, so I'm not complaining. I'm honestly not complaining about it too much. Let's get to baseball and let's say how this American League stacks up. When you look at the American League right now, and we as Mariners people are just amazed that they have right now, as of recording, have their largest division lead since 2001. And we can really talk about how they stack up against the rest of the American League and the American League leaders. So when you're looking at the AL right now, Joe, what do you see? How do the teams stack up next to each other?
Yeah, the Orioles have set a standard. I mean, they're still behind the Yankees, but to me, they look like the best team in the league. At the start of the year, I thought there was going to be a lot less separation at the top. I've had the Jays, Orioles, Rays. Mariners, Rangers, and Astros all within like 4 games of each other. And we've seen the Mariners and the Orioles kind of separate from that group. I've had the Mariners on a tier. The Yankees, we saw some of the flaws in Boston over the weekend. There's some real depth issues in the lineup. They work the bullpen very hard. They've been fortunate in the early going in terms of sequencing and leaving runners on base. Pitching's probably not as good as it looked. Of course, they're going to get Garrett Cole back, so that's going to make a difference there. Going to take some of the pressure off some of their starters. I see a gap between the Orioles and the Yankees. I see a gap between the Yankees and the Mariners, but it's less than you would think from the standings. The one thing I've said about the Mariners, and this isn't original, is just how impressive their starting rotation is. At the start of the year, I had them second behind the Phillies. If you look at the statistics, some teams have been a little bit ahead of them. Some of that is Emerson Hancock taking some starts instead of Brian Wu. But the front four has been completely healthy. They've gotten 59 starts from those 4 guys, and they've basically taken every turn. Kirby pitching yesterday afternoon. That's the strength of the team. And Brian Wu, we keep getting these scares with his elbow. Is he going to be able to pitch? Is he not going to be able to pitch? But even then, you're talking about your 5th starter. So if they can keep Gilbert, Castillo, Kirby, and Miller healthy and taking their turns, there's no reason they can't maintain this lead in the division. The Astros look a lot different than they did to start the year. Losing Urquidy, losing Javier, not getting those guys back now. Tucker's missed some time. They don't have a very deep offense. So I think just on talent, there's a gap between the Mariners and the Astros. And the Rangers, Mariners look great this weekend. I think it's hard to judge the Rangers. Not only did they start the year with a bunch of starting pitchers on the IL, pretty much by choice, but they traded and signed fragile guys. But, they've had some offensive injuries as well. So 8.5 back, 90 games to play. That's still plenty of time. Nothing's been locked up yet. Some head-to-head games left that can make a difference. But right now, the Mariners not only are in position to win this division, but to possibly get the number 2 seed in the first round bye.
So with all that, what do they have to do come this trade deadline? I think it's been made pretty clear by most people they're going to have to go add a bat. But in your eyes, Joe, what type of bat could they add that could really change this lineup and level them up, let's say, closer to where the Orioles are?
The nice thing about having, I think they're 17th in weighted runs created is that when your offense is not that good, you can add just about anything. I do think the corners, are going to be the real problem. France, he is not the drive line machine that we hoped he might be coming out of after going there this winter. He's hurt right now. But I think he ends up being somebody you don't have to replace. But you look at the corners, Dominic Canzone's been okay. Mitch Haniger hasn't worked out very well. Mitch Garver hasn't worked out very well. Just don't sign Mitches, I guess, is the lesson here. But that's going to be where you're going to have to focus. And it's hard because you've either traded for or signed these veterans. And it's hard to say you're not going to play as much now because we have gotten somebody better. So there's a certain amount of it's not just a baseball thing. We're not dealing with strat cards. You kind of have to go to your veteran and say, you're not hitting well enough. We got a replacement for you. That's going to be on Jerry and it's going to be on Scott Service to kind of manage that. Now, where do you add these guys? I mean, Rowley's going to play. Julio Rodriguez, even no matter what he hits, he's going to play. You're not benching Julio Rodriguez. Still a plus center fielder as well. So no matter what he hits, he's helping you. So you've got to really find guys on the corners. A month ago, I would have said, just go out and get the best bat you can, figure it out, left field, DH, first base. France, Haniger, and Garver have hit better over the last month, so it's not as big an upgrade. The other problem, guys, it's hard to find upgrades out there. We have a situation right now in baseball where there are only 5 teams that are clearly sellers right now. And one of the problems with that is that they're 5 bad teams. They don't have that much to sell. I think a good fit for the Mariners might be Ryan McMahon of the Rockies, but he's a good fit in a lot of places. The Mariners have a lot of frontline talent. I know Emerson's hurt right now, but you look at Henry Ford, you look at the other middle infielder guys, I'm blanking.
Felton.
Thank you. They have high-end talent to trade. Like, they could trade for a true 5-win player who they could retain for a couple of years. The teams that are likely sellers right now don't have that. So you're kind of competing with your advantage that you have really good prospects to trade might not be as much of an advantage because there isn't a Justin Verlander out there. There isn't a big hairy bat, Manny Machado a couple of years ago, Trey Turner a couple of years ago, a true impact player. It's going to be hard to find that kind of hitter in this particular trade market. Now, it's July 17th. Let's give it 5 weeks. Let's see which of these teams in the wild card races maybe fall out and see what bats might become available. But if I'm Dipoto right now, I've got the rotation. I can fake the bullpen. They're getting Gregory Santos back. Graves Spire probably back in the second half. I don't think the bullpen's going to be the big concern. But, man, if you could add 2 hitters to this team, and again, if one of them's an OBP monster, if one of them's a slugging monster, great. If you can combine those into the same skill set, great. But it's a hard market. Ryan McMahon, Taylor Ward. If the Marlins had any good hitters, they wouldn't be in the situation they're in right now. The Nationals, similarly, you want to go maybe get Jesse Winker back? I know he had such a great experience in Seattle. I'm sure he's eager to come back.
Yeah, and they would gracefully take him back. Wink, wink. Joe, I didn't hear you mention Cleveland when we were talking about contenders. Are you buying them?
I'm shocked by the offense, and some of it is changes to the ballpark. It's gone from being a pitcher's park to a hitter's park. Construction, they changed the upper deck and right field, took out some party suites, and it's changed the way the ball flies. So evaluating their offense is difficult. Are they this good, or is it just the park changes? I do think Stephen Kwan emerging as kind of the Gen X or is he Gen X or millennial? Millennial. Brett Butler has been fascinating. Just a contact hitter who makes so much contact and draws so many walks, it actually doesn't matter how little power he has. He's also the best defensive left fielder in baseball. When you get a guy like that at the top of your lineup, it makes everything else work. But, they got a lot of dead bats at the bottom of that lineup. Bo Naylor hasn't developed, so the Naylor-Hedges platoon has been really bad at catcher. They've worked with Tyler Freeman in center, mixed bag on his offense, but he's been a league average hitter, so that's helped him. I'm concerned about the pitching depth. Remember, Bieber's out. They haven't gotten Gavin Williams to the majors yet. They had a top prospect in Daniel Espino, who's probably never going to reach the majors now. So there's some real depth issues. Tristan McKenzie pitching through an elbow injury. I doubt they're pitching in a way that makes me think the Twins are going to catch them. And it also makes me think that the AL Central team will once again be the number 3 seed.
So another Mariners question I have for you, and as we start to kind of wrap this thing up, All-Star games in about a month. The Mariners are 8.5 up, like we talked about. But you look up and down the roster, and I wouldn't say there's one guy that stands alone of this is their all-star. At least at the time of recording, it's not Julio right now. It's probably somebody in the rotation. Andres Munoz probably has a case, at least if you were asking me. But if it were you, who's got a chance to be the Mariners all-star or all-stars right now?
I mean, Logan Gilbert has a chance to start the all-star game. Mm-hmm. If you look at the mix of pitchers and, whoever starts the Sunday before can't pitch and there's all that nonsense. But I think Gilbert's as good a guess as anybody for starting the game. George Kirby has a higher ERA than the group, but, FIP is 2.29 or something. And, 9 walks in, 15 starts now. He's just been incredible. So I think you could take all 4 starters legitimately. I'm a Luis Castillo honk, so maybe that's a stretch. But, yeah, I think you could take 2 to 4 starters from this team. As far as the hitters, AL catching is so bad that I think you make a case for Cal Raleigh. I think you put him on the all-star team. If Julio, has a good couple of weeks here, maybe you put him on the team. But this is the nature of baseball, man. I mean, it's a team effort. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's very possible to have 3 all-stars and be a sub-500 team. And the converse of that is you can have a very good team that just doesn't have a lot of obvious all-stars. I mean, the Yankee dynasty never had you go back to the 90s Yankees, they never had an MVP. Jeter got the closest, but the team depth is what got them there. So yeah, I think Mariners at least 2 starting pitchers, probably Raleigh are on the all-star team.
When you watch that Mariners rotation, what is it that jumps out to you the most on how they pitch and what they do so well?
In command mostly. Kirby's kind of the poster child for throwing strikes, but you look at Gilbert. I mean, this is something he's had since he came up. He's really good command of his stuff. Bryce Miller is power. I got to see him up close. You guys remember the game in Baltimore? He started, gave up 5 runs in the first, and he hung in there for the next 5 innings. He gave the Mariners 6 good innings that night. Well, he gave them 5 good innings and the 1 bad one. But just be able to hey, I'm getting knocked around here, but I'm going to give my team the innings. That was really impressive to me. It's a mix of really good raw stuff and really good control of it. You look at Castillo as kind of almost a kitchen sink guy at this point. At one point he was a fastball guy, then he was a changeup guy. He's had been a couple of different things over the course of his career. So it's a mix of talents. They work deep into games. I believe the Mariners are just shy of 6 innings per start. And note they lead the league in starter innings. They lead the league in innings per start. That's a big factor too, because you look at, I mentioned earlier, the bullpen injuries. Brash is out for the year. Santos hasn't pitched. They're missing Spire. Getting through 6 as opposed to getting through 5, that's an inning every night you don't have to fill from the bullpen. So it's a little bit of everything, even with, I had Kirby for AL Cy Young, which wasn't an original thought. I think everybody did. But even with not having anybody who's really in that Cy Young mix right now, except maybe Gilbert, they've all been very good pitchers. If you look, the highest ERA in the rotation is 3.5. The highest FIP is like 3.6. And again, I mentioned the innings. That kind of depth in a game that's crying out for good starting pitching has been their big advantage.
Joe, I want to end this on a fun note because on this podcast, we hold umpires accountable. Every single week, we sit here and we hold them accountable. The worst performance of the week gets highlighted. They get called out. And you do that quite a lot as well. So I want to give you this opportunity. Can you name your top 3 favorite umpires to not watch because they're that bad?
CB Buckner, Alfonso Marquez, I would have said Angel, obviously, but in fact, just to complete the segment, I'm going to say Angel.
Yeah,
Angel
he almost has to be on there. Well, even though he's only going to umpire essentially like a month's worth of games this year, he still probably will end up with the most notable ball strike at bat probably of the decade.
Yeah, just this year, I'm thinking of the Wyatt Langford one. I think he was behind the plate for that. But yeah, I mean, the one thing I want to say here is I know you guys are having some fun with this, but focusing on any one umpire is the problem. They're all just guessing. They're all flipping coins back there because when the pitch is coming in at 97 with some spin and some break, all you can do is guess based on what the catcher's done. Major league umpires now aren't calling pitches, they're calling catches. So Angel Hernandez, CB Buckner, all these guys we can talk about, or even on the other end, Pat Hoberg, who's obviously in the news for different reasons. They're all just guessing, and we've got to get an automated system in place.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is the percentage-wise, they're actually calling strikes at a higher percentage than they ever have. It's just now that we have the technology to see that they're actually wrong. And
also, too, I think we underestimate the impact of missed calls. If you flip, I was watching a Pirates-Rockies game. Don't judge me. 3-2 pitch well off the outside corner got called a strike. So the pitcher threw a ball. Brian Hayes can correctly ascertain that it was a pitch off the plate, and the umpire turned it from a walk to a strikeout. That's an enormous flip in run expectancy and win expectancy. You look at take a 1-1 pitch off the plate. It's a ball. The umpire calls it a strike. That's like 500 points of OPS in a given at bat. So if you tell me the percentage is high, that's great, but the mistakes are huge.
Yeah, they are enormous, and hopefully they get it to it. I think are you full automated or are you challenge system? Because I think Lyle and I are
full
to the point where challenge system I think makes the most sense.
Well, a challenge system is just the illusion of agency, right? Oh, you're going to be able to do something about this, and it's a way of kind of soft launching ABS. But if the system is good enough to call a percentage of pitches, it should be good enough to call all the pitches. All a challenge system does is gamify the process. And I've been there, I've seen it now. I will say that people who watch more minor league baseball than I do have a better sense of the strengths and weaknesses of the automated system. I completely concede that. I want to make the point that I, who watches an obscene amount of Major League Baseball, have a better sense of how bad Major League umpiring is. So I think there are two sides talking past each other right now, where I'm just saying the system is better than what we have. The system is flawed, but it's better than what we have, and I think we've been better off with it in Major League Baseball. I think one of the problems with the challenge system is that it puts the players in position of officiating the game, and I hate that. I think the system or the umpires, one or the other, should officiate the game, and the players should play the game. I'm against challenge systems in all sports. I think they're mistakes. The NFL started with it 1,000 years ago, and everybody just said, well, the NFL's doing it, let's do it. I would really, truly think the game would be better off if you just had a fully automated system that not only got the calls right, but beyond right, called the pitches based on where they crossed the plate as opposed to what the catcher did afterwards, and finally called a consistent 17-inch plate that made it more fair for the hitters.
Well, I think we all agree, though, the current system is not good enough, and it needs to get better because it's just ridiculous that in a major sport, these types of things continue to happen. Mm-hmm. Joe, this has been great. People, all of our listeners, go check out your work on joesheehan.com. He writes a great newsletter. You can get a full year subscription. You can get a lifetime subscription. Go help him out. Joe, thank you so much for taking some time to join us here today. We learned a lot, and it's been great. Hope to have you on again.
Thanks, fellas. Thank you.
We certainly hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with Joe Sheehan. He is such a smart dude. We had a blast listening to him. Hopefully you guys learned a lot from that conversation. And again, go check out all of his work. You'll learn a lot every time you read him. He is awesome. With that, that'll just about wrap up this edition of the Marine Layer podcast. You guys know the drill. You want to listen to the full form podcast, you can do so Wherever you get your audio pods, make sure to download, make sure to leave a 5-star review, leave a written review. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And check us out on social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.